Croeso a gyfarfod y Llywyn y Cwniau. Welcome to full council. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating area will be in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consented to be filmed and to the possible use of images and sound recordings as outlined above. So we're going to today's agenda. Item number 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor Harvey Jones.
Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Chris Barry, Mr Mayor.
Yep. We're going now to item number 2, declaration of interest. Members are reminded, members of A and B.
I have to declare interest in item 14 and do some work for Merthyr Tydfil Leisure Trust.
No one else? That's right. We're going to open session. Item number 3. Yeah, okay. Item number 3 is deferred. So we're going to item number 4. Minutes of the previous meetings. So we accept it.
Could I move the minutes of those previous minutes for accuracy, please?
Can I second it?
I second them, Mr Mayor.
Can we put that to the vote, please? Thank you very much. That's complete and carried. We go on to committee reports now. Item number 5, revenue budget. And so Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The revenue budget 2020-21. On the 16th of December, the Welsh Government settlement was announced at 4.85% for financial year 2020-21. A table of settlements for Wales can be seen at Appendix 1, along with the data sets that it was based on Appendix 2. The report focuses solely on the financial year 2020-21. I'll bring the amended medium-term financial plan to Cabinet on the 26th of February and for recommendation to special full council at the 4th of March 2020. Within the report, there is consideration to a budget requirement of nearly 128 million for 2020-21 to include the provisional settlement, net additional demands, service budget reductions, corporate budget reductions, contribution to reserves, further financial commitments. The revenue budget presumes a council tax of 5.99% set as per medium-term financial plan March 2019. Our final local government settlement is due to be announced on the 25th of February. We're not expecting any significant revisions. Key areas of concern, you will note at table 4, page 82, additional budget demands, explained in depth at Appendix 4. Our agreed budget reductions in the October 2019 full council meeting are highlighted at Appendix 5. These do not include those items deferred and out to consultation. Our corporate budget reductions include the minimum revenue provision, review of the council in December, just gone, superannuation review, are all included at Table 5 Appendix 6. Our contribution to reserves will include the proposal of the reversal of the 600,000 from the budget reserve as indicated in the medium-term financial plan of March 2019. In addition, we propose a further 300,000 to be placed in the reserve, resulting in the general reserve standing at £5 million. Having the reserve sit at an average of 3.7% to 23-24, without requiring any further contribution over that period. There are practical further commitments that will require further discussion, investigation and agreement by this chamber. Some important dates for us to know. On the 5th of February, there's a members' workshop where we'll be going through those items. 25th of February is our final local government settlement. 26th of February, Cabinet will consider the capital budget and the council tax recommendation to full council. The 4th of March will be the special budget setting full council. 11th of March we have the Chancellor's budget statement, and we have a programme full council for the 25th of March, which we may be discussing further items from the budget perspective. I'll take you to the recommendations of 2.1. The implications of the provisional local government settlement for 2020-21 outlined in section 6 and appendices 1 to 3 be noted and accepted. 2.2. The Cabinet recommended net corporate additional demands outlined in section 7 and appendix 4 be approved. The service budget reductions previously approved by Council outlined in section 8 and appendix 5 be noted. 2.4. The Cabinet recommended corporate budget reductions outlined in section 9 and appendix 6 be noted and approved. 2.5. The Cabinet recommended budget reserve and general reserve contributions of 600,000 and 300,000 respectively outlined in section 10 be approved. And 2.6. The Cabinet recommended provision of further commitments of 764,000 outlined in section 11 be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second Mr Mayor and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Councillor Jones?
Can I take you two members to the appendix? I'm on page, I chaired a meeting this afternoon, that's on page 15. Whether the pages have changed, probably have.
Appendix 10.
Yes, appendix 4.
If you could say which number, Councillor Jones, and then we can say what page it is.
Oh, right, it's number 6, reference number 6.
So that's on page 90 of your...
Right, 90 is it, sorry.
Page 90, yeah.
The enhanced provision there, there was a question there which I raised this afternoon in the Joint Audit Scrutiny Committee about the £100,000 overspend. But can anyone here, either Steve or Sue, tell me what is the total cost of the enhanced provision budget? I would have thought that this is escalating by the minute.
That's the answer, and I'm quite glad he's here.
Yeah, I think it's around 1.7 million pounds is the budget for enhanced provision.
And that will be it. That will be the budget for the next financial year, taking into account the increase there and the overspend. I got notes from this afternoon's meeting, so you'll have to excuse me. I am transfer these over. While I'm finding that, I'll ask a question which covers about 6 or 8 of the items are included in Appendix 4, and that's to do with the discussions that have been scheduled with the trade unions. This was also raised this afternoon. Can anyone here tell us exactly when these will be completed, and when the outcomes of the consultation with the trade unions, are they going to be reported to Council in view of the fact that the budget is due to be determined on the 4th of March?
Sorry, Councillor, can you confirm what consultations with the trade unions you're referring to?
one example, I'm sure you're well aware of it, the alteration with the litter picking, etc. Combination of the teams there. Others.
So they've all started at different stages. So they're all still within their consultation period at the moment. The only one that is closed down under the current business cases is in relation to the cemeteries proposal. That is agreed, the consultation will end there. The consultation in relation to the litter picking isn't starting with the trade unions until next week. The consultation with the CCTV members of staff is currently ongoing. So the only one that has concluded is the cemeteries one.
Well, these were, they're in the document there. I'm sure all members didn't realise that these were starting at different times, because the recommendations were made some months ago. I don't understand whether the cemeteries one is starting recently when this decision was made at least 3 months ago. So you've got no idea, Fran, then when all of these will be completed, and will any of them be completed in time to be taken into account when we will be considering what is still a draft budget?
The hope is that they will be completed towards the middle of February. That was the original timeline in the reports that went up to Council. Ready to take effect then for the 1st of April.
Will that be a report coming back to Council, I presume, at the end of February?
Only in relation to what the outcome was of the consultation and whether those staff have been released. Save for the street cleansing one, that is a report to come back to Council following the outcomes of the consultation before any decision is made on what actually happens with the service area. CCTV as well is a report to come back to Council following the outcome of the consultation for Council to make a further consideration in relation to what happens with that service area.
Right. So let's stick with that particular one then, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's been discussions with the trade unions on that aspect in CCTV. There's been no agreement so far. And if and when there's an agreement, the outcome of that will be reported to Council, because obviously there's staff involved, and it's going to be CCTV, as I understand it, was not going to be staffed. And are you saying that because of that, there might be other considerations as to how that CCTV is going to be dealt with if there's agreement with the trade union?
Yes, you are correct. There has been additional proposals that have been put forward by the trade unions as part of the collective consultation process. Those additional proposals will be put forward to Council for those to make a recommendation then in relation to the service area.
Can I take you to another one? It's item number 44, which comes under the corporate costs, which is on page 97. It refers there that the very last sentence there, that the council will now required to pay incremental increases where agency workers have been engaged for more than 12 months. I know this has been the subject of a previous report. Have you got any indication how many of the agency staff are now over the 12 months period?
I think it's approximately 80 as it stands at the moment.
Did you say 18 or 80?
There's 80 staff that are over the 12-week period, so they're now liable for parity pay. In relation to over the 12 months, I think that was 52, but I'll need to come back to you to confirm.
So in relation, I mean, that's a substantial number of staff. Perhaps this might be the need for a further discussion. I would have thought in a scrutiny committee, because 52 is a hell of a lot of people to be engaged as agency staff for over 12 months we're almost talking about people who are semi-permanent.
So yes, some of those will be covering maternity leave, where staff have taken extended maternity leave. Some will also be covering sickness leave, where staff have taken extended sickness leave. But yes, some would be covering permanent posts within the authority as well. And yes, there is a report going to scrutiny in relation to the agency workers, and scrutiny are considering the matter.
That's the Governance Scrutiny Committee, is it? I may have one or two other questions. If you bear with me, when I find my notes, I might come back. Thank you.
Any other questions? Can you... No. Can we wait? If there are no other questions, we'll have to move on. Any comments? Can we put it to the vote then, please? So,
Quite open the vote, so I think you can probably just...
yeah.
I can...
That's been complete and carried. We move on to item 6. And this is again Councillor Andrew Barry again.
Thanks, Mayor. Welsh Government consultation changes to the executive governance arrangements in principal councils. We currently operate a model of leader and cabinet appointed by the leader. A consultation is currently running until the 27th of February 2020 to gauge opinion specifically on, as we'll see, 1.2.1, the way councils can change their executive arrangements. 1.2.2, the acceptance and publication of electronic petitions requesting change, and 1.2.3, the number of electorate required to trigger a referendum on the change of executive arrangements. The proposal is laid out at section 4 with the consultation document at Appendix 1. I'll take you to the recommendations. Now, recommendation 1 has changed slightly, so bear with me. I believe Maya has already got the recommendation. It now reads, in order to compile a collective response, the forwarding to Democratic Services by any member of any comments or observations be agreed. Our 2.2 is the sharing of this collective response with all councillors for their information be agreed. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Members, any questions? Any comments? Can we put it to the vote then, please? That's complete and carried. We go on to item number 7, adoption of council tax reduction scheme for the financial year. Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adoption of the council tax reduction scheme for financial year 2021. This is an annual report required by Welsh Government to be adopted by the authority by the 31st of January. Within the prescribed requirement regulations, there is limited discretion given to the authority to apply additional discretionary elements and where increased cost and would increase cost within the scheme. The council tax reduction scheme funding is included in our revenue settlement and as such does not cover the full cost of the scheme. It is proposed to have the scheme remain as it is and as per recommendation at 2.1, which is the adoption of the council tax reduction scheme to commence in April 2020 and the requirement of the prescribed requirements regulations for the 2020-21 financial year be approved. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Any comments? Can we put the vote in, please? That's completely carried. We go on to item number 8. Merthyr County Borough Council replacement, local development plan. As Councillor David Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Summary report is found in 1.1. This report has been prepared to formally adopt the replacement LDP as required by Regulation 25 of the Town and Country Planning, the Local Development Plan Wales, Regulations 2005 as amended. It advises Council of the Inspector's binding report on the examination into Merthyr County Borough Council's replacement local development plan 2016 to 2031. Before I go to the recommendations, I'd just like to thank the Chief Officer and the Directorate of Neighbourhood Services who brought this plan to the Welsh Government. We've had a response back. We were the first council to have our LDP approved, and the letter that came back to via the council to me was saying how good the report was, and they thanked the council for the diligence and the way they went around in writing the report. There was it was commented on the number of individual responses. There was 557 individual responses to the LDP, as well as 15 stakeholder group meetings, which was commented by Welsh Government, and I'd like to thank you for that. I attended 3 of them, and I'm sure many of the councillors attended others in the award. So we'll go to the recommendations. That's found in 2.1 to 2.4. The finding of the Inspector's binding report attached Appendix 1 are noted, and adoption of Merthyr County Borough Council's replacement local development plan 2016 to 2031 is approved. 2.2. The Chief Officer of Planning and Neighbourhood Services be authorised to make minor typographical or factual corrections, presentational changes or consequential amendments to replacement LDP arising from the Inspector's recommended changes in accordance with paragraph 1.9 of the Inspector's report. The necessary arrangements are made to translate and publish the replacement local development plan, including making the plan available on the Council's website and at depositories in locations in accordance with 2005 LDP regulations as amended be approved. And 2.4, the use of adopted supplementary planning guidance, the SPG, prepared to supplement the policies of the existing adopted LDP 2006 to 2021 as a matter of considerations in the determination of the planning application is approved until they are replaced or otherwise withdrawn. I therefore move.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Smith.
Dawn. I'm concerned about the selling off the playing fields. If you want to sell the playing fields off, fair enough, but can we have a bit of return, because the Gurness is 2 by 1 square. There's no green areas up there. We haven't got a present moment now. We haven't got a playing pitch up there, because after the Marsh playing field has been taken up by Prince Charles. The Goiter Pond is a playing field, but you can only play water polo on it because there's so much water about. So can we have a look at that when we do something there?
Yeah, the change that's been highlighted on page 286 is a boundary change to the proposed allocation at Goitra Primary School, and the council's proposed this change to ensure there's enough flexibility in delivering the number of houses identified there. The impacts on public open space locally have been considered in allocating in that site, and the layout and design of the site will be considered as part of any future planning application. So it's just identifying the principle of development for that site at the moment.
So in other words, the whole site is not going to be taken up, only a part of it? Because the open plan and all that is all a part of it, and to look at that, it's all been taken up as one site?
The development will be required to provide sufficient landscaping for the number of houses allocated there, but the site is allocated for development, yes.
I know what about the development and just what about the green area? That's my concern about. Now you can go around sites and all that, but if you haven't got a green area in certain areas, it's not going to go for there. So can we really look at it?
The impact on public open space has been considered in terms of the council's required standards, and at this stage there's no scope to sort of change the allocation, as this is part of the inspector's binding report. But the council obviously be mindful of public open space needs and access to public open space. The replacement LDP includes a policy that requires developers to consider that as well.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The inspector's binding report was received on the 17th of December. Obviously, there's a mammoth amount of reading involved in the report and the LDP. The LDP, pardon the pun, is the foundation for all developments moving forward for the period up until 2031, so it is crucial that it's right. Was there an opportunity for members to have sight of the report prior to tonight? Because, like I say, there's a hell of a lot of reading involved in this, and I'm sure members want to make sure that they get through it as efficiently and correctly as possible.
Yes, the inspector's report was published on the council's website, I think a few days after the 17th of December. All participants in the examination process were also notified at the same time, and consultees on the LDP consultation database. So that's been public for a number of weeks now, and the council is required under the regulations to adopt the plan within 8 weeks of receiving the report. That's what this report is for today.
If I can come back in, Mr. Mayor, that's fine, I accept that. Were elected members notified that it was published on the website? Because unless you're perusing the council website all the time, you're unlikely to see it. So can I ask that in future, when it comes forward, that members are made aware that the updated LDP report is available to read, and then they can do so at their own leisure? Is that okay?
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, John, for all the hard work you've done in this. But just for clarification here, have we brought the LDP to council twice previously, and we've had workshops on it as well, so we've had plenty of time to study the LDP.
If I can come back in, Mr. Mayor, I'm not questioning that. Obviously, this is the report has come forward, and it's a binding report on the 17th, so obviously we've had an LDP for many years, but this is an updated one, and it's just prudent for members to have as much opportunity to peruse it as possible.
Yeah, just to confirm, when council considered to submit the plan for examination, that was the last sort of scope to make changes to the plan, and from that process it goes into the formal examination in public through the independent planning inspector. So there has been a public consultation on the matters arising changes as part of that examination process as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's not a criticism from myself at all. Like I said, there's a mammoth amount of work gone into this, and I thank you for that. It's just an observation that I think members need as much opportunity to look at the changes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments? Yeah, the leader.
Mr Mayor, reoccurring theme here. I wish I got to speak earlier in the revenue one, but we missed it. People tend to think things just happen. They don't. We got an excellent lead of planning. Judith, she's accessible. She's visible. She'll come and speak to you about anything, anytime. So that's the first thing. We know we need to access these individuals. They're the experts. The other thing as well is that what I will say, from my position as well, I've been to meetings in Caerphilly, Newport, Cardiff with Welsh Government. We're the only council, when I went to these meetings, and make note of this one, Anthony, we're the only council when we go there, we've got a lead officer, we've got a chief executive, we've got a cabinet member and a leader. And we're there at every meeting. Our lobbying, our supporting of our chief officer and our supporting of the actions of our planning team is important. But also it's a time for conflict as well. We argue, we challenge, because that's what the people think. And I get approached weekly on planning issues. So I think it is quite an achievement to see what you've done. And I do feel that some of the comments here are quite short-sighted. You know, a little bit of hard work, a bit more effort. You know, 5 weeks to read a document is enough for me, if put it that way. Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Right, so we'll put that to the vote then, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, that's complete and carried. Thank you. We go on to item number 9 now. Merthyr County Borough Council Nature Recovery Action Plan. Councillor David Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Some report is found in 1.1 to 1.6. As you can see, it's a massive report again. The Merthyr Tydfil Nature Recovery Plan 2019 to 2024 replaces the previous Merthyr Biodiversity Action Plan 2014 to 2019 and represents the S6 plan of Merthyr Tydfil Borough in accordance with Welsh Government Guidance Environment Act 2016 Part 1 Guidance of Section 6 the Biodiversity and Resilience of Ecosystems Duty. There's a mouthful for you. 1.2. The document sets out the legislative context as it relates to the Environment Wales Act 2016. The Act states that all public authorities are required, when undertaking a function in Wales, to seek to maintain the enhanced biodiversity wherever possible, within the proper exercise of the functions. In doing so, the public authorities must also seek to promote the resilience of the ecosystems. The status of biodiversity within the county borough is described within the document in the context of its important habitats, its protected sites and the incidence of the European protected species. The MTN-REP explores 6 objectives found within the Nature Recovery Action Plan for Wales in the context of mtcbc. Other areas addressed in the report include green infrastructure assessments and strategy, and states the Natural Resources Report, the area statements to be produced by Natural Resources Wales. The appendices detailed actions taken and proposed to be undertaken by Merthyr County Borough Council in relation to priority habitats and priority species, Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, and those actions be undertaken by individual departments. And then come to the recommendation that the Council adoption of the Merthyr Tydfil Nature Recovery Action Plan be approved. I therefore move.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Members, any questions? Any comments? So, Councillor Collett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as biodiversity champion, I'd like to thank Matt for all the work he's done on this. It's much appreciated, and I'm really pleased to see this report come to the council tonight.
Any other comments? Councillor Rogers?
Excellent report, and I think there's two things missing out of the report. Is not enough publicity, and I don't think the people who are doing it are getting enough credit. Now, I was watching Winter Watch last night, and a tree creeper come up there. I see them, Penmoyla, no problem. Hay, natural hay in the area there, the report from the gentleman, Mr. Davis, said that what we got in Arthur Park is second to none, and that's biodiversity. We got hay there, haven't we touched for, I don't know, 100 years probably. But the report, what they sent to me, was absolutely outstanding. I read it through. It's a massive report, mate. But I read it through. But what Merthyr got has got as much as anybody anywhere in the country. But I think we want to step publicity up, and that might mean some more money. So we start looking at money, no matter what we are, the situation we're in. More money. Credit to the department. I think there's only a couple there doing it, and what they've sent out is tremendous. So I'd like to see it, because there's not a lot you cannot see outside of Merthyr Tydfil. And when it comes up on the television, no, we got it. So so I'd like just to mention that in passing. And as a member of the RSPB since I was 8-year-old, and that's like 30 years ago, like, but you know, it's not a lot, like, but it's so important to recognise, because that is the future. Everything else will fall into place, and once we got our biodiversity, our natural history, and once we got that around us, Merthyr will definitely survive. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Leader.
Yeah, can I just add to that? I've known Tony since I was a child. He's always been the same. He's been passionate about his environment, passionate about his community. I support his comments, absolutely. We've got our own biodiversity expert here, really, in Tony. There's not much he doesn't know. And I'm sure we can do something about that publicity, Tony. It won't cost us a fortune. We've got a fantastic comms team here. But, you know, he's not jumping on the bandwagon because it's all the vogue now. That's how Tony's been all his life. And I think I fully support his, and as the leader of the independent group, I know we all fully support his views and his energy in this matter.
Any other comments? Can we put the vote in, please? We go to item number 10, corporate parenting board update, and it's Councillor Chris Davis.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Diolch yn fawr. Really delighted to bring forward this really important report and an update on the work of the Corporate Parenting Board and corporate parenting across the organisation. Introducing the report, I'd like to put on record my thanks to Annabelle Lloyd, our Head of Children's Services, who's done an excellent job pulling this report together. As it's such a very important issue to Council, to members, to the work we do supporting our children and young people, I just wanted to draw members' attention just to a couple of sections of the report. I know you've all read it, but I think these are really important things. At 3.1, obviously when a child or young person becomes looked after, the local authority has a responsibility to ensure they're looked after children and young people experience the highest quality of care and opportunity and achieve outcomes that reflect individuals' greatest potential. That's a really important message out of this report. At 3.5, it's not just social services that impact upon these young people. Once a child is in care, all elected members and officers, that's the whole thing about corporate parenting. It's across the whole local authority. Some people, there's a bit of a myth and a perception that corporate parenting is the responsibility of social services and children's services department, and this 3.5 really stresses it's all elected members, all the officers of the authority as corporate parents need to be concerned about that child and take the following principles into account when engaging with them, and these are really, really important principles when any decisions are made. That is this good enough for my own child? does this provide a second chance if things don't go as expected? Sometimes in life things don't, go as we plan. It's about giving those additional opportunities, sometimes time and time again. Sometimes it's more than just a second chance. It could be a third, fourth, fifth chance. Is this tailored to the child's individual needs, particularly if they're more vulnerable than other children, that really vulnerability profile where the journey of these children and young people, where they've come from before they become looked after. Also, 6.1 is really, really important. It talks about where we want to be, challenge to our officers. We don't want to bring children into care if they don't need to. Reducing the numbers of children looked after, and those who've experienced unplanned moves, that's not positive for children's well-being. Increasing the numbers of children and young people looked after who are closer to home, and a great amount of work's been done by Annabelle and the team in Children's Services, bringing young people back closer to home where we can have better control over the support they get for their education, the support they get from the local health board, improving the support available for care leavers to access housing, employment and training, the challenge we've been set as a council and all councils in Wales by the Children's Commissioner and Hidden Ambitions, and we are really moving at pace. Our pathway to employment, our work around housing and support is really picked up pace, and I'm really proud of the work that officers and members in this council have done, and developing the support that's available to help carers and looked after young people through distress, trauma. We've got some great work happening around Regional Partnership Board, the development of multi-agency placement support therapeutic service for our young people, the challenge that we put out as officers and members to the health board around meeting the therapeutic and emotional well-being needs of our young people, which is really, really, really important. 7.2 sets out obviously what we want to do next, really ambitious plans for improving the outcomes for our children and young people. There are 2 corrections I need to share with members to this report, and can I thank the diligent members of the Social Services Scrutiny Committee for picking these out. So very briefly, I'll take you to 5.10 first, and just the table there. Under placement type, there's a figure set aside Merthyr Tydfil foster carers, which says there were 26 carers in 2018, as at the 31st of March. That figure should actually read 52 and not 26. That was a typographical error. The figures at 31st of March 2019 are actually correct at 62. We saw an increase in foster carers. Members will be aware of the report last month on the enhanced offer to foster carers. Big event this Thursday at Zoa to try to recruit. The message from me is Merthyr Tydfil foster carers for Merthyr Tydfil children. Really, really important that we try to keep our children where it's safe and right and appropriate to do so as close to home as we can. The second matter that there was a bit of a debate and discussion at Scrutiny Committee on was around 5.6. To be fair to Annabelle, she tried to set out the message around reducing the rate of children and the demand for children, but the paragraph talks about at 5.6 of the report, reassuringly at Q2, which is obviously the end of 2019, we noted a reduced demand for looked after services, and the rate at which children have become looked after has reduced by 50%. That was about capturing the reduction on demand. The numbers currently are overall high, but we've got plans for bringing some of those children back home, looking at discharging care orders. But the messages in that paragraph were around really the rate of increase is beginning to reduce. Yeah, our hope is the numbers will stabilise and we'll see a reduction. All of the work we do in early intervention and prevention, supporting change, trying to keep people and children with their families, in their communities and at home. We really invest in that front door and that front end. So that was the intention of that section, was about the reduction of the rate of numbers and the reduction of the numbers themselves, stabilising children and young people and reducing and trying to keep them close to home. So, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, I'd like to, subject to questions and comments, recommend the 2.1 that the content of the report be debated and noted. And with your indulgence, I'd like to add a second recommendation to the report, And the recommendation I'd like to add to 2.2 is provision to members of an updated workshop on counsellors' corporate parenting roles and responsibilities be agreed, and subject to questions and comments, I so move.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any questions?
Mr Mayor, it's in relation to paragraph 5.6. Could we have the up-to-date figure, please, for looked after children? It was raised in scrutiny, but I think full council should be made aware of it as well.
Thanks, Councillor. At Q3 end, the overall number of looked after young people was 205.
I got a supplementary to that. It's in relation to paragraph 5.5. Thank you, Annabelle, for that. It's in relation to paragraph 5.5. Merthyr, Tydfil is third per capita, per 10,000 capita. Are you aware who the highest and the second highest are above Merthyr? If you're not, perhaps you can provide it at a later date.
What I can say in terms of the regional work is that third position, fourth position and fifth position are held by Merthyr, Tydfil, Rhondda and Taff and Bridgend in that order. And I think in terms of what we know around the underlying issues leading to high populations of looked after children, that will speak for itself. What I can do is reassure Council that there absolutely is a commitment to changing that high number, that we are working very hard with families to try and make sure that absolutely only those children for whom there's no safe alternative become looked after. And we're looking for opportunities to safely and appropriately reunite families where possible, and also in particular developing our offer to the community around early intervention and prevention, to make sure that we're offering the community as many opportunities as possible to address family problems earlier on.
Mr Mayor, just to explain the reason why I was asking that, it wasn't any criticism of Merthyr, it was to see whether those other two authorities, obviously the three that mentioned are within the Taff area, whether those other three authorities were of similar areas of deprivation, etc., to get an idea really where Merthyr sits within the table.
Thank you, Councillor. Whilst we'd all be uncomfortable about a league table, because the circumstances that lead to higher population across a number of themes around socio-economic demographic features, poverty, leadership, provision of services, but I will confirm, but I believe from my reading the number 1 and number 2 were held by Torvine and Blaenau Gwent.
I suspect it possibly was one of the Valley's authorities. Thank you. Mr Mayor, could I perhaps leave it on that? I've got a couple of more questions, if that's okay, but if other members want to go, I'll come back.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The Cabinet member mentioned therapeutic services. Can I ask, what therapeutic services do we provide? Because I'm aware a resident has been told that children's services don't provide therapeutic services, and it's a matter for the health service.
Thank you, Councillor. It's very difficult to respond to a set of circumstances in the way you describe, and would be happy through a member process to respond to that. In terms of therapy, what we're very aware of for our looked after young people, and particularly those with a plan for adoption, is that you have to be really clear about whether the circumstances for that young person and their family situation are right for a therapeutic intervention to be successful and to have a lasting outcome, what type of intervention, how that can be achieved, and also whether there are other and better ways of supporting that child and their situation. So at the moment there are arrangements for looked after young people to receive therapy when the circumstances are right, and There are also provisions through the regional adoption arrangements for where it's appropriate, subject to assessment for therapeutic assistance for those young people. The local health board does work with the local authority, so elected members will be aware of the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. There is at the moment a regional development being supported by the Regional Partnership Board, which will see the local health board and 3 authorities come together to commission and deliver a consistent approach to therapy for looked after young people and young people with a plan for adoption.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just come in there, just to be clear, we need to be very careful about the use of the word therapy. Therapy can mean a specific clinical, medical therapeutic intervention, which of course is only delivered by health, but anything could be described as therapeutic. All sorts of services that the council offers through its social services department are therapeutic. I could have a quiet chat with you, which could be classed as therapeutic. So it's just about how you use the term. So Annabelle has given a very proper and very full explanation to you, but I think when talking to members of the public, it's probably just wise to be aware that there are different interpretations of that word.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is on page 306, in the bottom of the page, where the recommendation is, I quote, improve stability by increasing the supply and skills of foster parents and suitable placements that are close to home. And it says the progress up to the 10th of January. I'll read the last paragraph. It'll take some time to see a suitable supply of Merthyr Tydfil foster care has been available for all our looked after young people. Now, all these foster carers, in my opinion, Mr. Mayor, deserve the George Medal. How many are we short? And I know there's a lot of work being done in advertising this everywhere to try and increase the number of foster carers, but I can't see from there, and I didn't see it elsewhere in the report, how short are we of supply of Merthyr Tydfil foster carers?
Thank you, Councillor. It's impossible for me to give you an exact number because it's not a pure science. So what we're trying to do is to assess trends and predict need and demand. So you'll see at the end of financial year 2019, the council relied on 45 fostering provisions outside of the council, what the council could provide. So that's an assessment of where the gap lies. What we're learning is that we are seeing some small growth, but certainly that growth isn't at pace with the demand. So it would be unrealistic for me to give a false impression to the council that we could turn that around any more quickly than we're already doing.
Mr. Mayor, it's in relation, my question is in relation to paragraph 5.7, Annabelle, and the table there, with regards to the 3 moves whilst the child or young person is in foster care. Could you give any reasons why there's been quite a substantial increase in the last 4 or 5 years?
Thanks, Councillor. Certainly over the last 2 to 3 years, we have had increased instability in the system, and for me that is really a concern for us. The underlying issues relate to the needs of young people can change when they're looked after. So whilst you plan with the best intelligence available to you at that time, we know that sometimes for some of those young people, adolescence can be a very difficult time, and meeting their needs may need different types and additional support. The poor supply nationally of suitable foster carers is an issue in that disruption, and also there is a need to develop offer and our provision to young people to help reduce distress within the looked after system. So there's a combination of factors, but what I can provide some more positive indication to council about is that we saw a small improvement last year and linked to some of the work we were doing, and this year we're on target for that improvement to develop further, looking at the council reporting us back in performance with around national average. Actually, what we want to see is no examples of those young people experiencing that disruption. We're moving in the right direction to reduce that.
Any more questions? Any comments? Councillor Barry.
Thanks, Mayor. It's a comment really on the environment that Annabelle finds herself working in. I'll take you back to a budget board about 12 months ago where what was quite some spiky exchanges on occasion there, and challenge really offered you up a challenge to turn the service into something quite special, and it echoes what the leader was talking about earlier in terms of these things don't happen. We don't find this report in front of us. It doesn't happen by itself, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think what this report shows is you've embraced the challenge that this authority gives to all directorates, but particularly in your case on that occasion, to come in them with substantial financial efficiencies and to be working to the highest standards for our children. So it's well done for a great report. Well done.
Councillor Jago.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my comments are just to echo that, basically. So I sit on the Education Scrutiny Committee and Social Services, and this is the second corporate parenting report that we've had annually. And I must say, the work that the team are doing has gone from strength to strength, and it's all been driven in the right direction. The focus on celebrating the success of our children that are looked after, the priority of keeping them closer to home, are all really instrumental in making the changes for our young children and young people in the community. Ultimately, we want to be in a position in Merthyr Tydfil to aspire to have no children looked after. And that's always got to be our ultimate goal. But when you look at the first bullet point on item 5.5 on page 308, where it says the deep dive of cases linked a significant increase of our children looked after last year, and one of the factors was the increase in demand at front door of high-risk cases where preventative work would not have been a safe and viable option. It means these children are being identified in our local authority, our children being identified too late. So that really shouts out at me to say that we need earlier intervention for our families. We need equalities of awareness and access of support that's available to our children and families, because at the moment they're not receiving that in our county borough. So earlier intervention is crucial. We need equality across what's available frontline support to parents, and it's got to be focused on what matters to the parents as well, not just a catalogue of services that are on offer. We need more trauma-informed practices across the local authority, and we need to make sure that we are reaching these parents before they reach crisis.
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just like thank Lisa, Annabelle and the team. I know the hard work that's gone into this, the team. But one thing I like to thank is the children that come along to our corporate parenting board, and how they contribute to the board, which I think sometimes we don't look at them. The children always get bad press, but it's about time we give them a bit of praise. And I thank you all for all the work you're doing. And let's remember, they are our children.
The leader.
12 months ago, I think this was an area perceived to be a crisis. There was a narrative. There was a lot of crisis in Merthyr Tydfil by all accounts. I haven't seen much of the end game of that, to be honest with you. But this was perceived as a crisis. High numbers. But we know the environment we work in. And the environment we work in is different around the Tydfil and Bridgend. It's more acute, our high numbers. And those early interventions, you are right, make a difference. And the workload our social workers carry is higher than elsewhere, and that's a fact. I was speaking to some of them last week in a one-to-one we had. A challenge was set for you under very difficult circumstances, not just about intervention, but how you manage business, how you dealt with business. Yeah, difficult conversations with good people. And we still have a crisis, but we're not in crisis. The systems you've conducted have saved nearly £600,000 from a projected growth overspend, for a better word. £600,000. Myself, David, Chris, Lisa, and yourself have been to RPB. When I say we've been to RPB, we go there as a group. Like I said earlier, we fought and fought and fought against the bigger areas to get our fair share. Not based on population, based on need, because our need is greater. We haven't won the battle, but we're there. We're in with a better shout, and I hand over my hearty congratulations to you all for the work that you've done, and you and your staff. It's quite remarkable. And also, I would like to finish in saying, we will stay with you, we will support you, we will challenge you, and we will turn up for those meetings that other people don't turn up for, and we will be there time and time again, because that's how we show our support for our children. Thank you.
Before I ask Councillor Davis to finish the debate, any other comments? Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I really thank members for your questions, your really encouraging comments. I just wanted to respond back to Councillor Jago, because I know she's very passionate about this, and you're absolutely right at 5-5. I think it was very important, though, back in 2018-19, when we hit that position of, let's be honest, some drift in some of our cases, that deep dive was really important, and it's really important that we reflect and we take on board that some of the demand that came in at the front door was high risk, where preventative work wasn't a safe and viable option, and it's really important that we admit and recognise that. But we kind of nearly 2 years on, because we've had a whole year of 19-20 financial year. We're going to be shortly going into 2020-2021 financial year, and we've done a huge amount of work responding to that as the team. Our investment in our early help hub, members will be aware, certainly scrutiny members. The work that we've done around accessing, and Annabelle has been the lead around taking forward the regional piece of work on the therapeutic service, not a therapy service, but a therapeutic service for some of our children looked after and those young people and children who've been adopted. The challenge about reaching out to parents, reaching out to crisis, is being work we've done, again, around early help hub, the Edge of Care service, the supporting change team, all front-loading, all early intervention and prevention services. And I want to reassure members, as your portfolio member, as your children's champion and corporate parenting board chair, there's work we have to do and has to be done in partnership, and health is somewhere where we've got to go. We've got to challenge them. They need to be doing more for our children and young people. That's a bit of work we've got to take forward. But can I thank you once again, in just summing up the debate, for all your enthusiasm, for all your questions and comments, and I look forward to seeing as many of you as you can, hopefully 33 of you, at the workshop that we'll be looking to arrange fairly soon.
Can we put it to the vote, please? That's complete and that's carried. Thank you. We go on to item 11. School insufficient nursery education for the county perimeter, as Councillor Bitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues will see the summary of the report set out, first of all in 1.1. The report sets out an assessment of whether the current provision of nursery education for the county borough is sufficient to meet the needs of the area. And this assessment considers both FPN 1, which is our foundation phase nursery 1 places, pre-nursery for our rising 3s, and FPN 2 places, nursery for our rising 4s. The report concludes that subject to some moderate changes to the current provision as detailed in 6.3, the local authority is able to secure sufficient provision for English medium places from 2020-2021 onwards. The report concludes that sufficient provision of Welsh medium nursery education cannot be secured currently, as more Welsh medium places are required, and the report sets out plans to address this in 6.52 and 6.53. As part of a wider strategy to increase the number of pupils receiving Welsh medium primary education across the county borough. And of course, just on that note, that goes across a different strategy for us as well, that we work in conjunction with this one, and that is our WESP, you know, our Welsh medium education strategy as well. 1.4, the report also concludes that despite securing sufficient provision of English medium places, some parents will still choose to wait to access FPM 1 places in their first preference school rather than accept a place in an alternative school, and recommends a long-term strategic approach to this to address this as set out in 8.5. As part of the long-term nursery education strategy, the report also recommends that the capacity issues in 3 schools currently making scenario C non-viable be addressed so as to enable full-time FPN 2 places to eventually be provided across all of the county boroughs' schools. So a fantastic body of work, very detailed body of work done and carried out by my team, by Anthony and Helen specifically, and obviously led by Sue as well. Very detailed report. So I go on to the recommendations, Mr Mayor, and they are 2.1, the nursery education offer of English medium places proposed for academic year 2020-2021 is detailed in 7.2. Is sufficient for the county borough, and the local authorities working towards securing sufficient provision of Welsh medium nursery education places as detailed in 6.51 and 6.52, and that is approved. 2.2, the nursery education admissions policy as detailed in section 7 is approved and reviewed annually as part of our published admission arrangements, with a 3-yearly update on nursery education provision being brought back to the council. At 2.3, that the funding of April FPM 1 places be implemented through the scheme of delegation from April 2020, of course subject to relevant consultations, and that is approved. 2.4, that the revenue budget required to deliver a seedling Welsh medium primary school, as detailed in 9.3, be built into the medium-term financial plan from 2021 onwards, and that be approved. And last but not least, to 2.5, that the long-term nursery education strategic aims for FPN 1 and FPN 2 places set out in 8.5 and 8.6 are also approved. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Any question, members? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can you take members to page 340? And on that page, the first Roman numeral there, it refers to the long-term strategic aim, and it says the potential for capital works at Cyfarthfa Park Primary and Twyngorod and Community Primary Schools in order to increase capacity of nursery education provision to provide full-time FPN 2 whilst maintaining FPN 1 access. Could I ask for confirmation as to whether, in respect to Cyfarthfa Park Primary School, where I'm a governor, that these capital works will be taking place or not, in view of the fact that you look at the second item there, the inclusion in the Band C 21st Century Schools programme is not scheduled for 2026 onwards. And my understanding is that the other schools, and I understand the Welsh school up at Queen's Road area is going to have work done, and probably Twyngorod, and Cyfarthfa Park Primary will be the only primary school in the county borough that's not able to offer full-time to nursery.
Thank you, Councillor. With regards to Cyfarthfa Park Primary, Yeah, currently it's not able to offer full-time provision in September for FPN2 places, and we are looking at possible capital works at the school currently. There'll be a request being taken to the next budget board for inclusion in the capital programme, and we're not exactly sure the scope in terms of the extra capacity that'll give us in the school, but it certainly will increase the current capacity. It ought to allow the school to take part-time nursery pupils at Easter, because the school can't currently take April admissions. Whether or not it'd be sufficient capacity to allow them to take a full-time provision in the September, being then topped up with part-time in January and April, is unlikely. But obviously until we get the full scope in undertaken, we can't comment on that categorically. But Cyfarthfa won't be the only school in the county borough not able to offer full-time places from September. Ysgol Santes Tydfil is in the same position. There are capital works that are ongoing there currently. We've had monies from Welsh Government with regards to a capital scheme to reduce infant class sizes. That immediately won't make a direct impact in terms of Ysgol Santes Tydfil's ability to offer full-time provision. There's terms and conditions around the use of that provision that requires them to provide additional infant class sizes from reception to year 2. So the use of that class is tied up within that grant. And over the long term, the school will then be able to consider how they use that classroom. So there will be scope at that point for that to be considered, but again, we'll need to do further analysis at the time, because Ysgol Santes will take a significant intake of pupils each September, which will get topped up in January and April. So there's work going on there, but it's not sufficient to implement a full-time position. That's more of our long-term aim, and that's linked to our plans for our seedling Welsh medium school. Also, there's another English medium primary school that currently can offer a full-time intake in September, but that is subject to annual review based on the overall numbers in that school, because if the school was full across its ordinary capacity from reception through to year 6, that school wouldn't be able to take a full-time intake into nursery either. So Cyfarthfa wouldn't be the only school in that position.
So can I ask a further question on the same issue? You could confirm that is a definite plan being looked at for to offer a full-time nursery at this school, and if there is, could you tell me what the timeline is, please?
It's a long-term strategic aim, as detailed within the report. The report is seeking to achieve 2 things. Primarily to determine sufficient provision or otherwise for English medium and Welsh medium, and then to set up plans to be able to move towards that provision. That allows the council to meet its statutory duty. We are in that position for English medium, we're not in that position for Welsh medium, and our priority is to move forward to ensure we have a sufficient provision for Welsh medium initially. Above and beyond then the statutory duty, the strategic aims in the report are seeking to set out that what we'd like ideally as a council is to have all of our rising 3s accessing a part-time place January and April, and looks at options around helping to achieve that over a period of time. And the second strategic aim is around the full-time places for rising 4s, to ensure that all those schools that can't currently accommodate that due to capacity issues are addressed, and that will need to be addressed in a considered way. We'll need to ensure that we have the relevant strategic plans, the relevant finances in place, and so that is the aim, and that's the proposal to put to council. And if that's approved, we will then continue to work on our strategic plans to enable that, to bring that about. We've already begun the work behind the scenes to bring that about, and the bid for capital programme monies at Cyfarthfa Park Primary now is part of that. The indication that Cyfarthfa Park Primary is identified as a potential Band C school, again, is part of that strategy. So that there are no current definitive timelines for us to be able to deliver that. But the aim is there, and subject to approval, we'll then continue the work and be able to bring back subsequent reports so that members are clear how soon these things can be implemented.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a plea, actually, on the same page, 340, Roman numeral 2, where it refers to the long-term plans for Cyfarthfa Park Primary for inclusion Band C. 21st century programme is 2026 onwards, 6 years from now, to allow for, no doubt, some slippage by the time tenders are sent out. In these circumstances, I see that there's probably unlikely to be a brand new school covering Cyfarthfa Park Primary, probably not until the end of this decade. And I'd like to remind members that this is a split site primary school, so there's a situation here which it really needs examining.
Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just sort of addressing the fact that obviously we are looking at implementing another Welsh medium school, which I fully, appreciate. Shouldn't we now be looking at? No, it's not. I'm sort of addressing it. My view is that we should now be looking at sort of addressing a Welsh medium high school in the area, because obviously having 3 schools as a sort of junior schools, then I think we should be now looking at that.
Councillor Whitman?
Thank you. Can I reassure my colleagues that as a governor of Cyfarthfa Park Primary, that I understand the issues and the constraints that they face there, and of course they will be my utmost priority as well when we consider and plan for our next phase of 21st century schools. And to my colleague on the right, of course we do have a Welsh medium education strategy in place for the borough, and that will include, looking at the cohort of learners coming in and hopefully addressing any future needs and aspirations those parents and children have as well, Scott. So just to reassure my colleagues on that, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll put it to the vote now, I think. Thank you, that's complete and carried. Item 12 is the information report. We're going to item number 13. Could I move, somebody will move section 100, please? Lead.
Could I move a section 100?
Can I second that, please?
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can we put that to the vote then, please? That's been moved and carried. So we go to reopen session. We're going to item number 18. To deal with any of the urgent business of correspondence for the Mayor, I haven't. To receive communications with His Worship the Mayor, I have one. I'd like to pass on our congratulations to Councillor Scott Thomas and his partner on the birth of their baby girl. Congratulations. And that's the end of the meeting, so good night, thank you very much.